Hello, I'm Darren Jackal. I'm in my studio. I talk about product development, design, and mountaineering. Welcome to another episode of Experimental Design, Discourse and Disclosure. Last few episodes I've been talking about integrating the various components, the gear I use for ski mountaineering, into more holistic type of system. I'm going to continue that today. I'm going to talk about the final component, that is the sled, or a pulk, if you will. And before I get to that, I'm going to just talk a little bit about this channel and why I started it. I used to have a website that I disclosed all my intellectual property on that site. I do that as part of my intellectual property strategy. So by publicly disclosing these ideas, I am claiming ownership, sure, but I'm also discounting this intellectual property from patent, as once it's been publicly disclosed, it's no longer eligible for patentability. So that's the main reason I have this YouTube channel. The other things I want to say about the channel is expect nothing, don't be disappointed. That's a motto of mine. So I don't expect that these are going to get any better. And I know that for some reason, a few of you have actually subscribed to this channel and don't expect anything, really. I'm just going to continue to disclose intellectual property as I see fit and claim the ownership. The one thing I will say, if you ever decide, anyone out there decides to try any of these things, either the Mountain Tool holster or the tent system, the winter shelter system, I'd love to hear about your experiences. I'm always looking for feedback. I just want to say a few things about these ski mountaineering summit trips that I'm talking about, these multi-day trips. So first of all, when it comes to summits, I do everything I can to not camp. It's not something I like to do. It's part of the pursuit of mountaineering. So I want to be good at it. But if I can get a summit from the road, I'm doing it from the road. If I can get a summit from a hut, then I'm going to do it from a hut. Last thing I want to do is camp and drag all that gear in to get a summit. But when you do it, it is very rewarding. I will say that. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk about the sled next. Last piece of gear I want to try to integrate into my system is the sled. I don't use sleds often. In fact, you need to really think about when it is appropriate to use a sled, as they can get you into trouble. I didn't start using sleds until a climbing and skiing partner of mine, a smaller female who had broken her back in a parapente accident, liked to use a sled at appropriate times for taking the load off her back for these longer trips. So first of all, you need to be able to get everything on your back. The sled has to go onto your back during certain times. You can use a sled for, flat crossing frozen lakes, up really high on an ice field. So say you're going for, context-wise, a multi-day summit on Columbia ice fields, going for, say, North Twin, and you want to do South Twin. So this is a time when you could take a sled. Now, I say that they can get you in trouble, and I mean that. You can be dragged down into a gully, into a creek by your sled. You can have it fall into a crevasse with you and kill you on the way in. So the strategy for me is that you only take one sled per two people. And if you're going for a distance summit on a glacier and you have a rope team of 3, then I would say just one sled for that rope team, and it always needs to go in the middle of the rope so it can be attached to the rope. And if that middle person does go in, then it'll be suspended. If you're going to use a sled, then you need to make a plan. You need to strategize. There are certain times and places where sleds are just not going to work very well. Steep slopes become difficult. Some people put brakes on their sleds. Some people pull sleds with just rope. I only use some sort of rigid pole to pull mine. Some people cross theirs. There's a variety of things that you need to understand. That's why I like to have 2 people per one sled. So if you're doing something like a crossing a slope on an angle, and there is, you're having to contour, then there's a good chance that your sled is going to slide down and flip over. And if you have at least one person behind you who can be a tail gunner, who can keep the back end from sliding down, then that's the most efficient way to go. So there's not a lot of things I can say about a sled that's any different, but I do know that I was always encountering times on crossing slopes on it when you're traversing and the sled is on an angle that it would slide down and flip over. And so what I noticed on traditional sleds is that they will have a couple of runners underneath them like this, and that's going to give you 2 outside edges and 2 inside edges. And so when you load the sled up and your center of gravity is somewhere, you know, as low as you can get it in the center of the thing, that's going to be okay until you start to get to a certain slope angle where that center of gravity is now on over the outside bottom edge. And what's going to happen is that the sled is probably going to slip, or it's going to flip over, and then you're going to be in trouble. It's one thing for it to just slide down, another thing for it to slip. So the one thing that I'm thinking about doing with this sled, and why I built this prototype, or this model, sorry, I don't prototype, is that it does not have edges on the outside. What it has is 2 inside edges. So when I'm on a slope and the center of gravity is over this lower edge, it doesn't matter because there's no edge there. It's this edge that's going to catch and keep the sled tracking. That's my hope. So here is a very quick little model of that idea, where instead of a runner with 2 edges, I only have a single edge here. So anything going this way is just going to slide off, but anything coming this way is going to catch. This is 1-inch angle aluminum, which I just cut one of the sides off of on a particular profile so that it leaves me with this small edge that is lesser in height than the thickness of this material, so it won't catch there. And then it's got a bit of a positive edge on this side to help it catch. So I'll show you how this operates on the sled in a second. As I mentioned, you need to be able to put the sled on your backpack, and you need to be able to get everything else on. This is where I'm gonna be developing a bit more on the ski carry. The worst case scenario in this situation would be like having to walk down a long logging road on your way in or out to the snow because there's not enough snow down to where you've left your vehicle. So that's a bad situation. I try to strategize my trips so that snow is to the road and I don't have to do that kind of thing. But, you know, depends on what you're looking for. So you got to be able to put it on. I'm still working on some of this. This would be an old cross-country ski pole that I use as one of the poles to carry or to drag it. The thing that separates this sled from any other sled would be this system. So I see these as being vacuum formed. I just laser cut these pieces out on a profile that allowed me to rivet it to these runners that are giving it its shape. So you can see what's going on here with the 2 runners, but there is no outside edges, so things would just roll and then catch. So that's what my hope is, that when you're traversing the slope, that this edge would catch it and it would keep it from flipping over because it's pivoting around the lower edge. So that's probably it for the sled here, and I have other pieces of information or intellectual property that I'll be disclosing in the future. So how about we just wrap that up now? I'm Darren Jackal. This is my studio. I talk about product development, design, and mountaineering. Thanks again for stopping by. This is Experimental Design, Discourse, and Disclosure. We'll see you again next time.